I'm talking to you. Thank you very much. Good evening. Appreciate everybody coming on out tonight. I made sure that the heat was turned up so we wouldn't have to rely solely on body heat to keep ourselves warm.
Good idea.
And we do have some seats up front and some in back here. And then there are more chairs inside in case you want them or just to set them up for yourself. I tried to go back to the Tufton Borough Association records to find out how long we've been hosting a candidates night. And our records are not very complete, but we went back almost 40 years.
Wow.
And I know that in part because many years ago, back in the 70s or late 70s, my father was president of the Tufton Borough Association, and I can remember him planning this whole event and where it was going to go and where it would happen. So that's the only reason I know it's 40 years ago. But we sure appreciate you coming out, and we do appreciate all of the candidates as well for coming out. We do appreciate the willingness to serve in some capacity and being willing to come here tonight to meet and greet some residents of Tufton Borough. And I would like to stress that this is a meet and greet of Tufton Borough. This is not a debate. It is more of a discussion. We do recognize that for seats that are contested, especially if there are 3 candidates, as there are for some of the seats, there's bound to be some differences. And that's part of what the spice is, I think, of small town living. But we're not going to be throwing anything at one another or getting into any sort of arguments. This is really just somebody's chance to explain what they think, why they're running, and why they would like your vote in this building. Come, what, the date?
March 12th.
March 12th, thank you, Dan, March 12th. So, typically the moderator, many of you remember Gordon Hunt. He's still around, but he is very busy helping cancer patients travel to and from Boston. So he will try to be here, or so he told me. But he is winding down his moderator ability, and he made it very clear that I should seek other moderators. So in talking things over with Dan, he happily brought up that Steve pointed out to me a very good job last year, at the very last minute, I might add, and graciously offered to serve as tonight's moderator. So he has his own plan for when people are going to be coming on up here, and I'll leave him to describe it. But I will say up front, and I've told the 3 Governor Wentworth School District candidates that you will be first. And we do that so that we understand that you have other commitments, other places to go. Once you're done, although you are welcome to stay, you can, of course, just leave on your own, and we'll focus on the town of Tufton Borough. And then lastly, I'm just asking a quick poll. How many people know that the Tufton Borough Association has a Facebook page? Thank you very much. How many people actually saw the event tonight posted on the page? Okay, thank you. We're reaching some people. It's nice to see that social media does work. Very glad to hear that. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and I'll turn things over to Steve Brinzer. And again, Steve, thank you very much for offering to moderate tonight's discussion. And take it over to you.
All right, thank you. Before we get started, I'd like to lead in pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to keep the meeting tonight on a pretty informal basis. I do have a few items. Mark has usurped many of them, but I'll repeat them nonetheless. As he said, this is a forum and not a debate. It is an opportunity for you candidates to share a little bit about yourselves, why you're running for office, and what you see as the direction for the town or the school board. For candidates in uncontested races, I would like you to introduce yourself and provide some brief comments. Candidates in contested offices will have an opportunity to make introductory comments, after which there'll be a brief question and answer session. To maintain some order here, I'd like to ask that Those in the audience with questions would wait until I acknowledge them before speaking. Those with questions, please give your name and tell us in general terms where you live in town. I'll start this evening with candidates for the school board position, since one of them has to go elsewhere, has another commitment. Then we'll hear from candidates for the various town offices in reverse order from that published in the town website. In other words, the supervisor of the checklist would be first, and the selectmen will speak last. For contested positions, the order of appearance will be alphabetical order, but the candidate's last name. In fairness to each of the candidates and to the audience, I'd like to ask that we limit your time to roughly 5 minutes. I'll need to ask that the discussion come to a close if it goes too long. Obviously, we all like to get them tonight. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. And so, without further ado, I'd like to ask that the 3 candidates for school board come forward. And if you'll sit up here, we're going to try to bring each of the groups to the front so that everybody will get to see them and be able to talk. My wife would have said a road between 2 corners. Okay, Krista, you're up first.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Very nice to be here tonight. My name is Krista Hebert. I am a native New Hampshire person, born and raised in New Hampshire, educated in New Hampshire. I have been an educator for 40 years. 30 of those years were within Governor Wentworth, and they were at the middle school. And if any of you know the middle school, I survived and I have now retired. I am running for school board after taking a year off from working. So this is my 2nd year of retirement. And I'm doing so because I really think that I still have a lot to give the kids in the communities that I love so well. This position is the at-large position, as you know, and having taught in the district for so many years, I feel like I know each of the towns, and I know the kids of those towns and those communities, and all of our communities are so different and have different needs. And I think in looking at representing and being an at-large member, I should be able to do that fairly well. I believe that the school board in all of my years in being at Governor Wentworth has done a wonderful job. And I think that it's not an easy position to be in because the district is so large, the maintenance issues are so large, our population is so diverse. I am one of those people that from the time I was a child, I wanted to be an educator. I wanted to be in the classroom. I always have loved learning and loved teaching. I don't recognize any of you as the parents of kids that I've taught in the 30 years, but I've taught the kids and I have coached the children during that time period. I'd like to be able to, on the school board, bring a different kind of perspective, and that being one from an educator's perspective. I think oftentimes there are business people, which are very much needed on the school board, and the way their logical minds work. And if you asked anyone in my family, I do tend to be a tad logical. I think that there needs to be, when you sit down and you're having a discussion at academic affairs, that people should have a good understanding of the developmental needs of kids and how you match curriculum with kids' needs and what kind of people you look for when you hire people to go into your classrooms and take care of our children. I have in the past also been a member of the New England League of Middle Schools, and in doing so, it was a wonderful learning opportunity, and I was on the finance committee of that organization, and although it certainly didn't have a budget as large as our school district does, I was the chair of finance, and the budget was about $1.5 million. So I do feel I have a little bit of a sense of finances and how they work, and how to make sure in utilizing our funds that we always do it based on what the educational needs of the community are, and then try to work that into the budget we have to live with. My dad always said, you know, do the best you can, give all that you can in doing something, and I think there's still some left in me to give back to the community, and that's what I would like to do. Thank you.
Nice job.
I neglected to mention that I would like you to hold any questions until each of the parties has had an opportunity to speak. Next we have Rick Parrott.
Well, first of all, I can say thank you very much for inviting the three of us. I'm honored to sit here at this table with these guys and Krista. We all bring a different dynamic to this position. I find that a hard act to follow because I'm not an educator, never have. I've been an engineer overseas for many years. I recently retired, but now I see what she's talking about because I recently did a substitute teaching job yesterday. I know, you guys. I have a daughter that's in the 4th grade at Crescent Lake School, and when James Riley was the principal over there, and Ryan Gilpatrick was saying that they had a shortage of, and Ryan's here at the Tuftonboro Central School, if anybody you guys know him, said that there was a shortage of substitute teachers. So in my retirement from back in April, sitting around, I could only do so much housework and laundry and vacuuming. The wife needed me to get out, so I said, well, hey, I'll wing it at the beginning of the school year, and I'll try for a substitute teaching job. So after almost 5 months of undue anticipation for doing this, I got a call from Gail over at the Ospey Central School, and she said, would you like to come in and substitute on Monday? I said, okay, what class? She said, kindergarten. So I said, how many students? She said, 23. I said, oh, okay, how many special needs? And she said, probably 5 that we can tell you about. And I said, well, okay, 23. Can I bring a whistle? So, needless to say, she was just setting me up to see if I would actually take the job, which I duly accepted. And I showed up yesterday early. I walked in with Andrea, who used to be the principal here. I held the door before we walked in, and she goes, good luck today. And I says, I'm going to need every bit of it. And luckily, there was plenty of notes, and I was able to get through the day. I only had 5 students. 2 of them were special needs. I had one-on-one with one child, but I tried to push her away because I knew during the school year that the parents that are with these special needs kids, really have a tough time. But I had a great day. 5 kids. They get me to play. We got to play with Legos, stuff I used to do when I was a kid. So I had a different perspective with the teachers and what they go through on a daily basis. At 10 o'clock or at 10:15, I had a 5-minute break to go to the bathroom, which I was very well anticipating that I had to go. And along the way back, Gail came to me and said, would you like to come back? I said, well, these kids are awesome. I'd love to come back. She goes, oh, no, you're not going to go back with those kids again. And I said, did I do something wrong? She goes, no, we want you 1st grade on Wednesday, so that's tomorrow. So luckily, I was able to get a haircut today and come here with the association. I don't have an education background, but I've been a senior engineer on a ship for the last 27 years, the last 17 as the chief, and I've had to mentor and teach a lot of the younger cadets that we've had on the ships, along with the young officers that work underneath me, and I was able to educate them and mentor them along. It totally pales different than the Governor Wentworth School District. 5.5 years ago, I was going to run, and I was mentioning to a couple people earlier that I was going to run, but I thought Stacy Trites was doing a great job, which I still think she's doing a great job. I don't know if she's going to run next year. I think her term is up at 21, but the at-large position came up. I chose not to oppose Stacy because I thought I could never do the job that she did. she doesn't have kids that are in the school system. I do have a child that's in the school system, so I have a vested interest, not only as a taxpayer and a citizen. I have to look towards my daughter's future, 4th grade, and I mean, they're at formative years. And I want to see this school district be, continue on the right path. But I do think we have some financial structures that maybe need to be reeled in a little bit. I think, at 2.5% to 3.5% every year, eventually it's going to come to a point where there's less people that can support it. That being said, I think every one of those educators from the top to the bottom are worth every nickel they were. After me going through what I did yesterday with the kindergarten classes, I have an utmost respect for them. Any one of us candidates are going to bring something different to the table. I hope you all vet us all, and I no matter who gets through in this election, I know we'll all do an awesome job. If it's not me, if I don't get your vote, and if you don't pass my name around somebody else, I will support whoever else is there, whatever capacity I am. Because I think now, I'm looking into the end of March now, I've 26 dates between now and the end of March for substitute teaching. And I thought I was retired. Anyways, my name's Rick Perrin. I'm honored to be here with the Tufton Borough Association. I almost got lost. I didn't think I was going to make it. And it dawned on me when I stopped to talk to the chief of police that this is where we hold a beekeepers meeting that I'm able to attend once in a while. So that's a great building. It's a lot warmer here than it was the last beekeepers meeting. I don't know if it's my hot air, but this is an at-large position. As we haven't noticed, I have a rotund body, so I fit the at-large position. But I'm not as good looking as these two, and I'd like to, relinquish the floor to the other candidate. And I'm honored to be here, and thank you, and I hope to earn your vote.
Thank you, Rick. And last but not least, we have Rick Surratt.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rick Surratt. I'm currently a selectman in Brookfield, and been selectman for 2 years, and I've been on the planning board for 3 as chairman previous to that. And I came in this beautiful building tonight, and I saw this painting by E.F. Hodges. And at first, I felt at home, because when you walk into the Brookfield town office, you see a carving of trees and maple buckets. And then my back started to hurt. Because we make maple syrup, and this is right around the corner. We've got all our buckets ready, the evaporator's ready to go. We're just waiting for the right time to get out, hang our buckets, and get going. So, I too am retired. I recently retired from General Electric Company after 40 years, manufacturing, management, manufacturing engineering. And I think that I would be good for the board because I bring diversity to the board. The skill sets that I have would go good. Business skill sets, management, and well, my father told me that wanting to run for a position should be the first disqualifier. So I don't want to say that.
I have to agree with that.
I don't want to say that I want to run, but I'm certainly willing. I would love to be able to help out. I've gone to the budget meetings this year, and well, I'll be honest with you. I was one of those people that I wasn't involved with the schools in Brookfield. I came from Boston and got here as soon as I could. But I wanted to go to the budget meetings to see why the budget was so big and, where the waste was. And I heard the principals giving their budget pitch to the school board. And to my surprise, everything is just right in line. And they're not asking for much. The budget is the budget because that's the cost of doing business. That's what it costs to educate children these years. And I took it a step further, and I went out and I visited all the schools, well, most of the schools. I have your school in Tufton Borough and the middle school left to go. But I've been to all the other elementaries, the high school, the trade center. And what I see in these schools is incredible. The teachers, the support staff, everybody is engaged in doing a great job. And they're not doing 8 for 8. These people take this home and work on things and come back because they want to give their best to our community and our kids. And so to the willingness to be on the school board to assure that the schools that we have and the quality service they provide to us, to our children and our community, stays in place. And also these people that I've met that are engaged on the job and doing so well. I want to work ways to make sure that they stay in place and we keep what we got and make improvements where we can and continue what we do good. The schools not only provide a great education for our kids, the whole district provides good jobs to our community as well. And I know our taxes are high, and there's a contingent of people that look at the numbers only, and they'll see 52 million and think that, our schools are off the ranks, we're out of control. But it's not until you come and look and see what's going on that you'll run into something that you want to protect and you want to continue growth and encouragement for this to continue on. So that's why I would be more than willing to be on the school board to help continue the traditions we have in the district. Yeah, that's about what I got tonight.
Thank you, Rick. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes, Scott?
For the young lady, my wife's a middle school teacher in Windham, Connecticut, 95% Hispanic. Could you give us even just a rough idea how much impact the implementation of a No Child Left Behind has had in our school district?
Well, I'll tell you that when I was first an educator, I was a special educator. So my first degree was in special education in learning disabilities and emotional handicapped kids. And from there I went on to then become a history teacher. I think the impact that that has had on our district is huge because financially I think it is huge because those children are in such need. And there is the minimum that you can do, and then there is what the teachers do with the minimum that they have to work with. That I think is a huge financial issue for us. I think it also hits even within the transportation budget because some of those kids need different transportation than riding the regular system. They need additional support, like when you were just saying about who you were servicing the other day. Those kids need a smaller ratio, they'll need a one-on-one, so that does come down and impact a budgetary line. But I also want to say that if you spend any time with those children, you know why they need to be in our schools. And so I think the intent behind No Child Left Behind and having kids remain within their communities and get the best education they can within their communities. When I was in the classroom, I would say sometimes for kids to look around at who was sitting around them because they were going to be the people that they hired in their jobs. They were going to be the people that they were working for. And to give those kids ownership and ownership of each other and in helping each other be a part of the community. So I think the intent, or part of the intent, in keeping kids within the community is a good one, but I think the financial impact is a big one as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Dan?
Dan Barnett from Melvin Village. I'm interested to know from the three candidates if you are in favor of the current formula that's used to fund to assess the various towns and fund the school district.
I'm not on the school board, but I am a selectman, and I'm familiar with the question you're asking. And when I look at my tax bill from Brookfield, and I see the amount of money that we pay for schools versus Tufton Borough and Wolfboro in particular, the number on my bill is much higher. So I think, remember I said I went into the budget committees trying to find out what was going on. I was a doubter. So I think, how am I paying 18 per thousand and these guys in Tufton Borough are paying 4? What's wrong with that? But what I didn't know was 25% of the bill from the school is from assessment. In Tufton Borough, you got about 2 billion in inventory here. We have 900 million. So your 25% is going to be a big nut compared to ours is, I think, $250,000. So we pay by attendance, and you pay by taking a good chunk of your assessment and putting it on the schools rather than other things for your town. So when you look at the bottom line, you're paying more. It looks like to us that we're paying a lot more. We're getting gypped. But in reality, towns like Tufton Borough and Wolfboro are paying more per student already. So thank you. So to answer your question, this formula has been in place since 1960, and it's working. We get our funds for the school. We could do it different. It could go 100% attendance, 100% evaluation, but that's not for me to decide right now. But what's going on right now, it's working. And I look at the raw numbers, and Tufton Borough's paying the most money. Again, thanks.
I think each of the communities is so different is why they needed to have such a complex formula. And so Tufton Borough does play more. Tufton Borough does subsidize other towns sending their kids through the school system. And I think that is the way it needs to be. Now, if it's perfect in all the components of the formula, I don't know. I have not studied it that closely. But I do know that because of the amounts that Tufton Borough pays, I'm a Wolfboro resident on a fixed income now. Because of the amount that we pay, it really does help all of the kids in all of our communities gain a more equal education and enable them to pay back to their overall communities. And I think, we're paying out of our pockets for it, but for some of us, they'll be paying our Social Security. So I'm just saying.
It's Dan, correct?
Yes.
Dan. I think it's a great question. One of the things, as a Wolfboro resident that lives on the water, we pay higher tax rates, okay? Wolfboro is a larger demographic for the school district. There's more kids from Wolfboro that go there. The small offshoot towns, Tufton Borough, Brookfield, New Durham, Middleton, stuff like that, have less kids, but they also have less land valuations and home valuations, and that ties into it. But the bigger question we have to worry about is why is the budget getting so high? It's not just maintenance. It's long-term wages and long-term liabilities when it comes to pension plans and stuff like that. If you continue to go 2.5% every year in a town like Tufton Borough, Wolfboro, my mill rate for the school budget is very small because we have a lot of properties we have homes on a lake. My neighbor has a house that just sold for $15 million. They pay a large amount of money into the system. They don't have any children that are in the system. But they pay their share because it goes by the mill rate on the tax valuation of their property. Tuftonboro has a lot of waterfront, and they subsidize these other towns, and it is a higher rate. When you look at the large sum of the money that goes into the pool, it's unfortunate that towns like Wolfboro and Tuftonboro pay more of it and have more of a burden. But if we sap more of a burden onto the smaller towns, we probably lose those towns to, say, a Rochester district or maybe to Conway, even though the demographic in the area isn't the same. Another issue, the Common Core curriculum that is now in place here, that's been in here for a few years, it's also put mandates and certain qualifications for teachers and adding teachers. Yes, I understand. I had 2 special needs kids yesterday, and those parents worked a great job with each individual one of those childs. But I got a whole whopping $75 for being there. Now, the teacher that I replaced was $197 a day. So I was cost effective because I was just willing to work because, I have to do something. I can't say, I'm gonna drive my wife and my 9-year-old daughter crazy. But those paras that are working there, they're getting paid less than a substitute teacher. So the parity should be looked at as the ratios of these wages. And if we can reel it in a little bit and get it into a better perspective, instead of 3% every year increasing, eventually it's going to be unsustainable. And maybe if we try to reel it in from the school board position, and I'm sure all 3 of us, if we make it there, would have some kind of an input on that, and maybe have to start looking at, instead of these 3.5% increases, 2.5 or 2.7, maybe start looking at the people around it that are supporting this. Okay, the millionaires that are only here, from Memorial Day to Labor Day, don't really bear the burden because they don't care. This is a secondary or a third home, or it's just a toy home. But the people that are here left after that, here for the winter, for the, mud season, and pre-winter, winter, and then, that 2 weeks of summer that we get, it's a burden for us, I think we need to get the budget in hand, and I think we need to maybe push back a little bit, and I think that's what you need from the school board. I mean, educators are always going to say, oh, we need more, we need more, we need more. We just spent $62 million, if anybody remembers that, on redoing the high school and the middle school. My wife used to work in the middle school in the food trades, and you know what she gets paid an hour? $11 an hour. That's a thankless job. I wouldn't want to do it, But the disparity there is wages, and that's the biggest part of this budget, and that's why Tuftonboro and Wolfboro pay most of it. We have the most children in it, we have the newer schools, and we have the larger land property that, that takes up the burden. I'm sorry if it was long-winded, but that's my assessment. That's something I've thought about for a long time. Maybe we need those checks and balances from the budget side from the school board. And I haven't seen that happen in years, hence I'm here, But that was a very good question.
Just one more thought for you, and this is a Jack Widmer thought. The more that the state hands back to the towns to pick up, the heavier the burden it is overall. And I really do, I agree with Jack, is that sometimes we as citizens and taxpayers need to stand up and say something to the state. Well, aren't you really proud that you're keeping the tax rate down overall? But look at the burden that it's doing on some of our individual towns. And that's, that has almost distorted the formula for me, because it wasn't even something that you could really prepare for. It's like you set your budget and then, oh, surprise, see what we have done. And that's just really not a fair process.
To build on what Krista said, and I'm not trying to take anybody else's time, because I know there's a lot of great candidates that want to speak. Right now, the education system in New Hampshire it's dictated by the federal government. Okay, it started back 3 years ago when the change started going into place. And again, I say it, the Common Core. It made you have to do certain things. The money shouldn't leave the towns to go out and then we get a little bit back. It should stay here. And so it goes into our system, but we're outflow. We're the largest and the most expensive school district in the state of New Hampshire. And the performance rate isn't at the top, like say Exeter or say Manchester or Concord. So the bigger burden is here for our district because we are such a large district. We cover the most ground in the state, and I hope everybody understands it. Something we need to work on.
Okay. I'm gonna need you to cut it off so we can get out of here tonight. I'm sorry? Oh,
Yeah, let
okay.
please, yeah.
All right, that's fair. Go ahead, sir. Open. Wrap it up.
Stay of execution. Just a point, I'll make it quick to Krista's point and Rick's. The 76% of that budget is wages, benefits, etc. And another great portion of that budget, special needs, etc. They're not in control of the school board. These are things that could get pushed back on us at any given time. The state of New Hampshire cuts their budget, they push back their retirement costs on us. So where did that retirement come from? Did they make a promise or a commitment to all the municipal people and then decide they're gonna cut the budget? They're not cutting budgets, they're just pushing the cost back on us. And now it's our commitment and we're forced to pay. That makes the budget go up and that's something out of control. They could just push money back on us. Special needs, but by the grace of God, I mean, we get special needs kids in, we get a bigger population, the cost goes up. The school committee isn't looking around to see how much they can squeeze out of us taxpayers. It's the cost of doing business, and a lot of this is not in our control. And just what we have left to cut, the 24% or whatever it is, those cuts are gonna hurt the community, the families, and the kids first. There's, from visiting all the schools, there's another thing, there's a lot of social activity and support to families and kids that go on from the schools. Where I come from, there'd be a welfare department, or the state would be picking up this money to care for families in need, etc. And the school, these devoted people that we have, instead they just stand up and say, don't do it. And where's the cost, where's the money coming for to do that? It comes right out of that school budget. So there's so many things that inflate this budget. If we were able to run our schools like schools and take care of our employees, that budget would be lower. So one of the answers would be to find out how we can send some of this cost, if it's dropped on us, back to political subdivisions that already made the commitment to pay it. So,
Thank you, Rick.
you all.
Alrighty, should hesitate to ask, but are there any other questions? All right.
I make a motion to go to the next order of business.
Good to meet you. Good to meet you.
More chairs in the back. You need more chairs in the back? You're okay? We have chairs up here.
Now, just get going.
Okay, moving right along. Next position, the candidate for supervisor of the checklist. Marion, if you just want to stand up and talk right there, that's just fine.
That's fine, thank you. I think you can probably hear me. My name is Mary Ann Markison. I'm running for supervisor of the checklist. This is not a job that I sought. I'm sorry to have my back to you. I served as supervisor of the checklist for 6 years. My term was up last March. I was happy to serve, but I had no intention of continuing. Last spring, Heather Kubadu came to me and said, Ann Hunt's health is failing and she's not going to be able to continue in her position. Would I be willing to step up and serve in Ann's position for the rest of the year? And I said, Ann is my friend. How can I say no? How can I not do that for Ann? And I said, sure, I'll be happy to do it. She said, don't worry, we'll appoint you, we'll swear you in, it'll be good, you're good to the end of the year. Well, as you all know, Ann didn't recover, and Heather came to me and said, Mary Ann, would you be willing to serve as supervisor of the checklist just until March? until we can get somebody else to run and finish out her term. And I said, sure, 3 more months, really, you know, it's kind of the least I can do. How can I say no? She's my sister, you know, how can I not do that? So I said, yes, I would be glad to do that for Ann. So here we are, and it's March, and oddly enough, nobody stepped up to run for supervisor of the checklist. It's not a big job, it's a pretty small job. If I could wave my wand, Ann would be here tonight. She'd be sitting here like she always is, knitting. You know, she loved making those baby sweaters, those owl sweaters, and boy, more than anything, I wish she were here tonight, and I'm sure all of you do too. But she's not, so I'm here running for supervisor of the checklist because it's the right thing to do. So, thanks, I appreciate it.
The next candidates for library trustee, Marion, I'm going to ask if you'll come up front. Skip Hurt told me that he has had a prior obligation and he regrets that he's not able to be here tonight.
Just stand up.
Well, you can do whatever.
All right, well, I'm just going to stand up. For those of you in the room tonight that don't know me, there's very few that I can see. I'm Mary Ann Murray. I have summered here since I was 13 years old. So now I'm going to tell you that this is my 56th summer here, so you know how old I'm going to be. I loved Rebecca Rule's little statement. I can say I'm from away. I'm no longer a flatlander. I turned into a person from away. I grew up in Lynn, Massachusetts. I was a teacher in Lynn, Massachusetts for 34 years. I taught a multitude of different things. And I came from a family that had a very close alliance with the library. My mother was a page from the time she was 14 on, and her sister, my aunt, was the first woman who was the director in the state of Massachusetts for the Division of Public Libraries. And she was my favorite aunt, but my other aunts don't know that. Now they probably do. She was my favorite aunt because she worked in this great big office in Boston and she had books everywhere. And I just loved going in to see her. And she was a very, very bright woman, and she really instilled in me a love of reading. And I love to read and I love to serve. So I would love to serve one more term at least, because we've worked so hard to try to get the right building. And I think we have the right building now. And the addition to the new library, to the old library. I didn't like it at first. I have to tell you, I was a little disappointed because that beautiful picture from across the street, but this is a better option for us. Way more space, and it's a wonderful space. It's going to be a great building. So all we need to do now is get out some votes to make sure that we can pass this. As I said, I would like to serve one more term, and I really love being on the library, but I have a lot of other interests. So sometimes I'd like to be able to say, I'd like to sit down and read a book. And that was one of the things that I used to love. I just spoke to Bill Markison tonight about the fact that I'm stepping away from the Lake Coast program. And that was the only time all summer that I could actually sit and read. And I'd say to myself, no guilt here, because I'm able to just sit here and read while I'm volunteering my time for another organization. But I would like to be able to get back and work with the friends in the new library, or in the new building. So if anyone has any questions, and I'm happy to answer if I can. And I would like to conclude by saying that I'm very grateful to Skip Hurt. I'm for two reasons. One, that I'm running against someone, because I always felt like the bridesmaid, 3 times a bridesmaid, never a bride. It was like, oh yeah, well, you're gonna be trustee again. So there is a little competition here this year, which I certainly welcome. And I'm very grateful to Skip, because he kept pushing and pushing and pushing about an addition. And I remember clearly the day he came in with the little box and he dropped it over the model of the library that he had. And I thought, oh, that's pretty interesting. And the only thing that was bothering me is how close it was to the street. But the fact that he did that actually is what brought us back to our addition. Because for all the years that I've been on this board of trustees, we have not been able to build an addition. That's what they kept saying to us. And I remember looking one day at the wetlands map, and it was the wetlands that was really inhibiting us. And I said, gee, look at that. That says not drawn to scale. I wonder why the guy didn't bother to draw it to scale. But I never thought to ask the question, because I thought, well, this was a wetlands map that they drew, and he's been telling us, and he must have surveyed this land. So I'm so thrilled that we actually now have the space over there, and we can put this building up. So let's see if we can get it done this year, and most grateful to we call him the whale, Christie. Very grateful to the large donors. They were
Next position that we have is cemetery trustee, Carol Bush and Ed Garrett. Carol's here, I don't know.
You want me to come up?
You, whatever you feel comfortable. If you'd just like to stand there and talk, that's great.
I don't really know much about being a cemetery trustee, but I have lived in Tuftonboro for 35 years out of Tuftonboro Neck. Before that, I lived in Wolfboro. This is my husband, Steve, and we raised 2 children here, and it didn't occur to me to run for cemetery trustee until a couple weeks ago we had a chimney fire. And it just amazed me once again how wonderful this little town is, and within 3 minutes the fire chief arrived, and within 10 minutes 2 fire trucks arrived, and everything was fine 2.5 hours later. But some of these guys were up on our roof for that whole time, and the wind chill was below 0, and how grateful we were for these guys that dedicate themselves. And I thought, this is a great place to live. And so I sell real estate for Maxfield Real Estate. I've been doing that for 25 years. And a couple days after that, I was in the town office and getting a current use map for a property I'm selling. And I had seen in the paper the day before that hardly anybody was running for office in Tuftonboro. Really, in this town of 2,500, where are all the volunteers? There must be people to do these jobs. And I work full-time, so it's hard to find extra time to help out, but thinking, I bet I could be cemetery trustee. I don't know why I thought that, kind of a strange idea, but anyhow, at that time, it was the last day to file, and at that point in time, I asked if anybody else had filed, and they said no. I said, well, okay, I guess I'm willing to help out. Back in the 90s, I was a library trustee, and I was treasurer and helped out there for a number of years. I served as president, vice president, secretary of our little Mirror Lake Community Church for the last 20 years. So I think I'm well suited to committees and boards and working with the public and accounting for funds, and I'm certainly up to the challenge. I think I have the time to do it, even though I'm still working full-time. I think the meetings are at night, and I have a flexible schedule selling real estate. And so I'm willing to do it. I'm dying to do it.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, the next position that we have is trustee of the trust funds, Chris Sawyer.
This is another riveting position, like the cemetery trustees. Anyway, I've been lucky enough, I've been serving, this is going to be the second time. It's a great position in the fact that the dry part is, yes, we do watch over all of the capital reserve funds and all the trust funds for the town, but the fun part of the job, which I look so forward to every year, and you'll hear a little bit more about it shortly, is that we help to distribute the Tufton Borough Scholarship Fund. And all the children that have grown up in Tufton Borough, if they choose to go beyond high school and go to college, what happens is they apply to the town, and for their first year for the application, they have to come for an interview. And it's awesome. I wish anybody that was a townsperson could be in all these interviews, but they're not. The children tell us, you know, where they're going to go, what their dreams are, what their hopes are, and everything. And it's just a joy to see these kids who grew up here and they continue their education. And we continue to, they can reapply. This is a renewable scholarship, which is great because a lot of them aren't renewable. And through the generous donations of not only the town's people, but we have some very generous private donors. One of the Tufton Borough Central School, they have their PTCO. They also have been very generous with a couple of their fundraisers. They have given us very, very generous checks over the years. So last year we were able to give out 23 scholarships to these kiddos, and it makes a big difference. So that's the fun part of being a trustee on the trust funds. The rest of it, it's cut and dry, but I really, really enjoy it. Pete Slusky is on the board with me. He's the treasurer. He does a fantastic job. He is such a numbers cruncher. He watches everything like a hawk. And Dave Braun, he's new, and he's getting up to speed, and he's also on the board. And I would appreciate having your vote again. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chris. The next position, we have two more. The Budget Committee, if Bob, if you, Chris, and Barry would come up so that you can tell us a little bit about why you're running. And
You want us both in at the same time?
yeah, all three of you at the same time. Yes, please.
I gotta stand. I gotta stand. I've been sitting at my desk all day. I apologize. I gotta stand.
You're gonna sit, I'm gonna stand. All right.
Okay, Barry, I'm going to ask if you go first.
All right, my name's Barry Ennis. I've lived in Tufton Borough since I was, well, I've been here since I was about 12 years old in the summertime and moved here in 1973. Self-employed builder. Did work as a school teacher at Governor Wentworth at one time, many, many years ago. And I've decided, I just talk to a lot of people, listen to a lot of people, and people complain about everything, and they say, you know, why don't you run for office and see if you can make any difference? And I said, you know, I don't know if I can make any difference, but I'm at the point in life where I say, you know, the budget goes up 7% this year. I think it was 9% last year. It's unsustainable that we can keep bumping it up this much for. And I don't know why it has to go up that much. A lot of it is employee compensation, insurance. I think we ought to be able to sharpen our pencils in the town and do a little bit of homework and whittle some of these things down, or change the people that we're dealing with for some of this stuff. Eliminate a lot of the wants that the departments in town have and just get by with our basic needs. We're a town of 2,500 people. 10 years ago, we were a town of 2,500 people. What's changed, other than the budget going way up, and we have a lot of nice stuff. I don't think we need all that nice stuff. We need what we need, not because, well, they have that, we ought to have that. We need more police officers and stuff. The town has not changed that much. The needs have not changed that much. The wants have changed a lot. and it seems like it's spiraling out of control. And I've always maintained, it started when we built that big fire department. The fire department budget is huge. We're gonna build a library addition. The library, the Friends of the Library did a great job. It is almost gonna be the Tuftonboro Free Library. And I think that's great. The police department needs a new police department. I maintain, how about the Friends of the Tuftonboro Police Department? Let's start raising money. Will it work? Why wouldn't it work? And try and take some of that burden off of us and, you know, give the police department what they need, not all the bells and whistles and everything that they desire. We don't need that in a town of this size. We're a small New England town in New Hampshire. I'm gonna try and, if I get elected, sit down and say, where can we find some savings? How can we slow the increases down? If we have all these great employees in town that do such a great job, can't they shave 5% off the budget? $50 on 1,000 and get by with that and make the increase that much less by sharpening the pencils, doing without some things and working a little bit harder. Prove to us that you deserve the money that you're making, and then prove to us that you need all this stuff. If you don't need it and it's just a nice item to have, let's do without it, and let's try and slow this down. So the budget's going up, I think, 23% in the last 5 years. It's unsustainable for a lot of people. We have health insurance for the employees. I think, and I may be wrong, but I think they don't pay into that. They don't pay any towards that. Most people now pay at least 25% towards their health insurance. People like me, self-employed, I pay 100%. You know, so there's a spot there where we could save some money. And there's a lot of spots, I think, where we could shave 5% off a few things, and it would make a huge difference. And if I get elected, I'm gonna try and see if I can't find those spots where things can be shaved and see if we can't slow down the inflation and the property tax here. So I'm running.
Thank you, Larry. Chris?
There's some people in here that don't know me, and I'm going to pretend none of you know me.
Can you
First of
speak
all-
up, Chris?
So, first of all, does everybody have a smartphone or a pencil? If not, here, I'm going to give you a number. The number is 569-8474. You should write that down, please. And here's why. I don't know if many of you know this, but I moved here a long time ago. And one of my first experiences with any town official was quite interesting. I had been working, I was working in another town at the time, and I came home and I noticed something was a little odd. At the time I had a horse, and she was out back in the paddock behind the barn, but I noticed something was a little odd. I was like, well, what's going on with the fence? I was like, well, okay. It was a little messed up, so I just went about my thing. So the next day, I got a visit. I got a visit from the chief of police. The chief of police at the time was Mr. Barry. And apparently what had happened while I was away at work, my horse had gotten out. And not only had she gotten out, she just proceeded to walk herself down the yard and just decided to take a nice little stroll up the street. And he was doing his little cruise around the loop, and he saw, what was going on? So he proceeded to get my horse. I don't know what he used for a lead, but he ended up leading her back home, and he put her in the paddock, and he rigged it back up so she wouldn't get out. And, you know, I was like, wow, gee, thanks, I really appreciate that. Sorry about that, but I'll get the electric fence going and all that sort of thing. So that was a long time ago. I guess you could say that I'm kind of a local. I did grow up in New Hampshire. A few things you might not know about me. I am self-employed, as Mr. Ennis is. But for fun, I've been a substitute teacher for 17 years. What the school board said and what they say about the teachers and the budget and all of that, unless you're in there in the schools and you're in the classroom, you guys have no idea. Those children, those teachers have a real tough job. But I enjoy it. I love every one of them. I tend to substitute at the lower level. Middle schoolers, Miss Saber here, she, bless her heart, they're tough. But I've done that for 17 years, so I know the kids pretty well. I just told you about the trust fund and me being on that, and that being a really enjoyable part of that position as a volunteer. So some of the things that I think I would bring to the budget committee are the fact that I believe the town needs some more balance. I think things have gotten a little out of control and a little carried away. The reason why I gave you that telephone number is a number to my office. As all of you know, 2 of us were in again last year. We both came up, we both did our speeches, and you know what was interesting, and I actually thought it was actually a little sad, was I'm not sure if everybody that was in this room, but it was down at the cafeteria last year, had already decided who they were going to vote for. I have no idea. But you know what? Not one person came up to me and asked me anything. Nobody came and asked me, nobody called me, nobody said, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? I fully expected after coming to candidates night, somebody might have reached out to me. Nobody did. And maybe that's normal. I didn't think it was, but maybe it's normal. So this isn't a debate. It's about introducing yourself. What do you think you could bring to the town? I think I could help bring balance to the town. I think things could be a little different. There's certainly things that we do need to have here. Absolutely, 100%. But as Barry said, actually, we're less than a town of 2,500. Last count was 2,153. I looked up, and you can look up as well, a whole bunch of towns in New Hampshire that we're all about the same. Take a look at their budgets. Just go online. It doesn't take any time at all. And, every town is different, just like the school board reps said. Every town's different, and our needs might be different than the next door guy. But we need to go with what's logical and reasonable for us. So I'm asking anybody here, if you, number one, have any questions and you want my opinion as to what I could do better if I was on the budget committee, I want you to call me. I want you to call me ahead of the election. If you have friends that say, well, I don't know about that Chris Sawyer, have them call me. I'll happily answer any questions. And then the other thing is, if I make it on the budget committee, there's a whole bunch of you out here that have tons of knowledge. There's a whole bunch of you out here that have great ideas. That's when you call the members who are there to serve you and take your opinions and your input, and we're supposed to take that in. And we're supposed to use that in our position. So if I get on there, remember that number. I want to tap into the people that are here that have knowledge. You might have something that is better than what is happening right now. I don't know that. Like I said, it was very disheartening last year. Nobody asked me. Not one person had one question for me. So I guess I'm hopeful that maybe this year, not everybody in here has made their decision already before you came. Maybe there's somebody here that changed your mind tonight. So like I said, I'm here to serve. I would appreciate your vote. And if I make it, you now have my office number. And I will get back to you. Just during tax season, it's a little tough, but I will get back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Bob?
I'm Bob Tepp. I'm the incumbent on the Budget Committee, and I've been on the Budget Committee now for 12 years. If elected, this would be my 5th term. Some of my closer friends have indicated that I might be the poster boy for term limits, but but I'm running anyway. It's when my wife and I moved here 19 years ago, we moved here because we really liked what town of Tuftonboro offered, and we've lived in a number of different communities in in the Connecticut and Rhode Island area, and every time we moved, and we always contributed to our community and felt it was a good idea to when we came here, to do the same. The move that we made was something that we enjoyed and we still enjoy. We have a wonderful community here, but it's a community that has to be kept moving and kept alive. When I retired 19 years ago, I retired from a career in commercial mortgage construction and investment, and also from the appraisal business, and felt that I could contribute something to the community with my background, and so I ran for the budget committee. And let me tell you a little bit something about what the budget committee is. The budget committee is 6 people, plus the selectman representative who review and recommend to the voters of the town the budget on an annual basis. We operate as a committee. We go over 30 different expense items, divisions in the community, and within that, there's probably 200, I think close to 270 line items that we review on a meticulous basis. Well, from October right on through to what we're doing today. So we have a concerted effort, and I take a little exception in terms of need versus wants, because that's where we're there to review the budgets. The selectmen have already interviewed and their department heads and have come up with the